Hello and welcome. This is from the CBN. We bring to you weekly reports and expert analysis of the actions, policies and economic initiatives of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. I'm Misi Dada. Reviewing the performance of the intervention programs of the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Monetary Policy Committee at its July meeting noted that 3 large-scale agricultural projects under the Commercial Agriculture Credit Scheme (CACS) were financed by the bank to the tune of 3.7 billion naira during the period under review, bringing the cumulative disbursement under the scheme to 744 billion naira for 678 projects in agro-production and agro-processing. One of the beneficiaries of CACS, Sultry International Company Limited, last week Thursday, opened a 25 tons per day capacity cassava-based sorbitol factory located at Ado-Awaye in Okeogun area of Oyo State, creating 10,000 jobs while helping to conserve the foreign exchange that would have gone into the importation of sorbitol. So in this episode, we continue with the analysis of issues raised during the July MPC meeting, but that's after this break. Stay with us.
If someone calls or sends you a message that you have payment issues with your bank and requests that you reveal sensitive information, end the call and don't click. It might just be a scam. No bank will ever ask you for your personal identification number, PIN, mobile banking password, or your card verification code, CVC. Scammers always sound genuine, but don't fall for their bait. Don't respond to phony emails or SMS, and don't click on any dubious links. Even if the other party calls your date of birth or your BVN, don't give them your security details. If you suspect there's an issue with your account, the safest thing to do is go to your bank or call the number provided by your bank directly. Protect your bank details so no one steals your money. This message is from the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN.
Welcome back. During its bi-monthly meeting in July, the Monetary Policy Committee noted that to improve electricity supply in the country and lower the overall cost of production in the real sector, the CBN intervened in the power sector to facilitate the deployment of enabling infrastructure for the sum of 2.5 billion naira in the period under review, disbursed to DISCOs for the operational expenditure OPEX and capital expenditure CAPEX under the Nigeria Electricity Market Stabilization Facility Phase 2. The bank also disbursed 47.8 billion naira for the procurement and installation of about 900,000 meters across the country. The central bank has, however, come under criticism for its intervention initiatives in the economy as well as other policy matters. The CEO of Global Analytics Consulting, Dr. Tokwe Fashua, shares his views. Dr. Tokwe Fashua, many thanks for joining us on the program.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Okay, now, so central banks, major central banks around the world are hiking interest rates on account of rising inflation. And Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, during the last MPC meeting press briefing mentioned that the committee will continue to hike interest rates if inflation continues unabated in Nigeria. What's your take on that?
So, well, I don't know if that's exactly how he said it, because if he said it like that, I would have cause to disagree, because you cannot keep hiking interest rates ad infinitum, and that's a very scary prospect, especially given the fact that in Nigeria it does not respond very quickly to hikes in interest rates. There are some things in between, and also it depends on where the inflation is coming from. Nigeria's inflation is partly from COVID spending that was not backed by productivity, just as is happening in other countries in the world, especially in Europe, America, and what have you. The lag effects of all of that spending and that shutdown of the system. But it's also a result of supply side, cost increases by suppliers and retailers and what have you. So it's both sides. It's coming from both sides. It must be carefully analyzed. Some people have been listening and Many analysts would prefer to only look at the supply side, and they dismiss the demand side as well. You cannot dismiss the demand side. A lot of money, I mean, we're talking of, the fact that the central bank spent quite a bit of money trying to reboot the system, even if it's by intervention with farmers and all of that, So the money has to permeate the system. And sometimes people don't bring out such money until later. And the truth is that we still aren't producing much, plus the fact that we're still an import-intensive economy. And so we also import inflation. If there's inflation in the rest of the world, we import that and add to our own. So you may not continue to increase interest rates ad infinitum, given the fact that that slows down growth, and the country may then be heading into a recession. And we've seen 2 recessions in 7 years. We don't want to see another recession in the next few months, even though, I mean, there's a prediction that the entire world will go into recession. So it's a dangerous prospect to want to continue to hike interest rates, which will also hurt producers, manufacturers, and all that, because banks will continue to increase their lending as well.
Okay. So moving on to another critical issue. News report has it that Bureau de Change operators earlier in the week reviewed the Naira to 620 Naira to $1 after a recent EFCC raid. What do you make of that?
Like I've always said, a lot of mere speculation is what's been happening, and also market manipulation, and also arbitrage in that market. Remember that the rates went as high as 716 just about a week or two ago. And of course, you have all of these people, I don't know what to call them, but maybe they are neoliberal economist kind of people, or those who subscribe to those shallow ways of thinking. They roll out and start telling you it's going to 1,000, it's going to 2,000, and all of that. And I've been lecturing this for quite a while. The speculation even accounts for a bigger proportion of the increases in the fall in the value of the Naira. Absolutely baseless, if you ask me. Okay, so and you can see now that they are reducing just as they increased earlier. The Bureau de Change also, I heard the DG of the Bureau de Change Association saying at some point that the central bank should abandon the official rate and move to their own rate, or the market rate, or the parallel market rate. That's never done anywhere. The central bank cannot reckon with black market rates anywhere in the world, okay? And so you can see now, if the central bank had taken such a decision when the rate was 716, see where it would have landed us. We would have continued the market, the parallel market would, or the black market will go to 800 or 900. It's like a dog chasing its tail. When you increase to 900, that one will go to 1,004. And before you know it, you can destroy the currency of a country and destroy the country, because the currency is the country. The currency is our representation. And the management of the currency is not only the job of the central bank. I mean, unfortunately, we have a taciturn president that doesn't speak to anything. But the president of the country should be able to understand that the currency is his remit. Because by the time he's leaving, it should be said that he made the currency at a certain level and is leaving it at another certain level. I mean, it's a big shame what's going on in the country. So if I had my way, if I had control, I will crash that black market rate to no more than 10 Naira or 5 Naira to the official rate. And it will remain like that.
So how would you achieve that?
It will be more difficult for people to assess that. First of all, you have to make it very clear that the black market is the black market and it's an illegal market. The BDCs can continue to operate. They are there for the sake of tourists and so on. Okay, and no transaction should happen in a BDC except documentation is made. If you travel abroad, even you want to change $100, they take your phone number, they make a copy of your passport, okay, as a tourist, and they keep that passport in their system. When that passport expires, they ask you to update it. They don't have to ask you all the time, but when you're standing in front of them, they call up your details and they confirm that you are who you say you are. That's the way it's done. So BDC is an organized business. We don't need more than 20, 30 of them, big ones in the country with different branches everywhere. Certainly we don't need 6,000 or 10,000 like it used to be. So if I had my way, I would do that. And one way that we need to do that is to go after what they call black money, whether dollar or naira. They did it in India. They're doing it in the UK as I speak to you. £50 and £20 have been changed to polymer, and people have been told by the end of September, if you don't bring it back, what you have, you lose it. You can't spend it anymore. And this country is known for corruption. Corruption is black money. People are hiding money in naira and dollar everywhere under their bed. So two things you can do. The central bank, if we had a president that was in tune, you need that political backing. Go after black money. Tell people, change 1,500 and maybe 200 naira notes. Give people a certain number of days to take their money back to the bank. Even these kidnappers that are collecting billions of nairas from people will be forced to bring out the money any which way, or they lose it, or the kidnapping business becomes no longer attractive if you can't get the cash from people. And equally the dollar, okay? You give people opportunity to change the dollar at official rate plus a premium. So you can offer them, like the central bank is giving RT 265 naira on top. The central bank can offer those who have dollar to bring it back in at plus 65. And of course, we also have to go after what DOM accounts, individual DOM accounts. It's not unnecessary. The moment you allow individual DOM accounts, what you're doing is you're giving every Nigerian an opportunity to go against their currency, to make their own currency weak. It's madness. So, but if you're a company that you have international trade transactions and all of that, you may keep within a certain limit. But people are sitting on millions of dollars in this country, and then the central bank is complaining we don't have money to finance exports and so on. So if you can do that, then you now make sure that people who need legitimate money can get the money that they need within 1 or 2 days maximum from any bank. Because the central bank will be awash with dollars and the commercial banks will be awash with naira. It's incredible that we have run this country this way and we're still continuing down this kind of, criminal state of mind. And unfortunately, the politicians seem not to care. But I hope that whoever comes next after this government will do exactly what I've said, so that people's minds will get off, this black market issue. Everybody, even somebody selling Bolly in Port Harcourt, is telling you about naira rate and dollar rate. And so we should focus on our economy, and all of us cannot continue to be speculators and arbitrageurs on dollar. Everybody is thinking dollar. And I hear people who are supposed to be enlightened talking about that we have a dollar scarcity. We don't have a dollar scarcity. There's no FX scarcity. What we have is a common sense scarcity, an innovation scarcity, okay, a productivity scarcity, because you can't be talking of scarcity when you're not producing. You can only have a strong currency when you're producing things that matter, that are worth value, which you can sell in the international market and get something back. Then your currency becomes strong. Not otherwise. You cannot sit on your hands and complain about dollar scarcity. There's no dollar scarcity. In fact, most of the dollar we have are corruption-based dollars. People paid bribes in dollars. People are keeping the dollars, and the politicians themselves are the biggest culprits. If we had, a half-honest leader, this is the first thing that they should do, okay? And this country will not be talking about all of this rigmarole.
Okay, so let's move on to another critical economic issue. The central bank has for long been cautioning the federal government over Nigeria's huge debt profile, advising that the federal government should diversify its revenue sources. The warning has, however, gone unheeded as the debt profile keeps rising. As the banker to the federal government, what do you think the options or the responsibility of the CBN are in this regard?
So essentially, you did not mention the fact that every time the central bank says that the Ministry of Finance counters them, and the Ministry of Finance will usually say that Nigeria has not borrowed enough, and they talk about debt to GDP ratio. Okay, and no matter the fact that that is a harebrained discussion. Everybody knows that you don't pay your debt with your GDP. What is your GDP? The GDP is the value of everything produced, goods and services in the country in a given year. including my own production and my salary, including your own production and your salary and everything you earn in a year. The government is not going to come to you to take some of your money that they want to go and pay their debtors, I mean their creditors. You see, so essentially it doesn't make sense. So it's between the central bank and the Fed and the Federal Ministry of Finance. The central bank is shouting because the central bank knows the position. The Ministry of Finance seems to be under political capture. The central bank is also exposed to the same federal government. And we've been hearing figures bandied around recently, which is also some humongous amount of money. Who is now? I know that if you ask the president, or if you tell the president, if you say that he's not aware that the federal government was borrowing so much from the central bank. So maybe it's the Minister of Finance that's actually doing that, but something is leaning on the central bank, collecting so much money from the central bank, apart from the monies we owe other people, which is 41 trillion naira now, about $1 billion. Remember that that is the official money, apart from the exposure to central bank, apart from the exposure to AMCON, apart from the exposure to pension that have been taken, and so on. So indeed, I think the debt situation is precarious. The Minister of Finance herself said that the last quarter we ended up paying 300 billion naira more. Okay, 300 billion naira more than what we earn in terms of revenue to service debt. And when you talk about servicing debt is basically about paying interest on debts and all of that. We're not talking about paying principal. And many of the loans that have been taken are long-dated loans, such that, to a large extent, they haven't started kicking in. What will happen when they start to kick in? So the central bank is right, and everybody should be scared that, debt profile keeps increasing, and revenue is not responding commensurately to it.
Okay, finally, before I let you go, economic intervention is nothing new, and some of the initiatives of the CBN dates back to the 70s. So why do you think the Emefiele-led CBN is being criticized for bridging the financial gap in critical sectors of the Nigerian economy at this time?
I think it's all because it's all boils down to the shallowness of many of the so-called prominent analysts. I mean, and the fact that, unfortunately, we look like a people we love a good lynching on a good day. We love a good lynching. We want a scapegoat. And, if we can identify one or two people like that, we go after them big time. That's what we do best. But nobody even looks inward to say, okay, how am I contributing to this issue? So there's nothing new about central banks intervening in fiscal policy. And in fact, writings from people like Paul Krugman, Jeffrey Sachs, and co. will show you they've always noted that every time a country, an economy is in a downturn, the central bank tends to take on more role apart from monetary policy. You cannot tell the central bank to be pursuing inflation targeting. The target, look at it now, what it is pursuing inflation. Inflation is running away. We're increasing interest rates, and manufacturers will suffer, and then we slow down growth, and we'll probably go into another recession. It'll be if we do, and which is very likely, that'll be the third recession under a government, which means that all this government came to do in 8 years was give us recession. It's like bad luck, unfortunately. So the central bank cannot sit down and say they're pursuing inflation when the entire economy is tanking. As at the time Emefiele came in 2014, he realized, and he added that, look, I would add employment creation to my remit. I'm not just coming here to target inflation. I personally don't believe that central banks of developing economies like ours should be targeting inflation. Inflation for what? Inflation for what? A high growth economy is what we should be targeting still, no matter how difficult. Okay? Yes, inflation is deleterious on income. But many people who would talk in terms of only inflation are people who are speculators, maybe financial market investors who lock their money and sit down, passive money, looking for how much to earn at the end of the day. A producer will look, I want to create value. I want to produce and meet a need, okay? And how can I mark up my prices such that I can cover inflation and get a little bit at the end of it? We should be targeting growth, because we have a high, population growth rate and all of that to take care of, So there's nothing big deal about it. Yes, sometimes it can become, it can go on, and you need to rein it in. It becomes a kind of perennial issue. You don't want it perennial. That's the work of central bank. Mind you, I also always tell people the work of central bank is about trying different policies, okay, seeing how they can work until they stop to work. And then when they stop, just when they stop to work, you change policy. So it's a dynamic duty. It's about managing what they call lemmas, okay? So it's either you're juggling a trilemma, a quadrilemma, you say, okay, well, I want to pursue, central bank can say, look, I want to pursue a stable exchange rate, okay, a stable interest rate, but you have to let something go. Either the economy will not be growing, or investors may not be coming in, or something or the other. So it's a very complex duty that they have. And I believe that they cannot sit in their ivory towers and while the economy is tanking and they say that all they want to do is target inflation. That will not be realistic. So, of course, they have bailed out the country and they have helped us. And I believe that, yes, sometimes we forget that, okay? We forget that when things come back on an even keel, what is their role? They should face their duty. I think it's a bit unfair, but well, for those who collect the work, who say they want to be central bank governors, that is the can that they carry, and it's not a funny place to be at all. There was a time, and even perhaps up to now, that only the central bank was running this economy, because we couldn't see. Okay, the Federal Ministry of Finance will complain about, for example, lack of revenue, but what have they done? On a few occasions, they made a move. When they brought, oh, look, we want to increase excise duty, the Manufacturers Association, Lagos Chamber of Commerce, and all of that will come after them and say, no, you cannot increase excise duties. When they want to even add ordinary sugar tax, the same associations have formed themselves into activists. And they're not looking at the bigger picture that, look, if you don't get some of these revenues, and of course, I also admit the fact that, look, government has not done well over time, and people have a distrust of government. But in spite of your distrust of government, you have to look at the bigger picture. So if the Ministry of Finance complain about revenue, how well have they done in increasing the revenue? How well has customs done? What happened to things like the luxury tax and mansion tax that Okonjo-Iweala proposed? She couldn't pull it through. Neither could any of the ministers that have come. Maybe they didn't get the political backing to do that. We have not been able to get an elite consensus going in this country where those who are sitting on top of the economy, people who have a lot of money will say, listen, let's give something back to save this country, because if this country is the only platform all of us have. If this country goes into a tailspin, we all lose our platform. We will not even be able to hold this kind of interview that we're holding. If this country gets into trouble, nobody will be able to have a peace of mind for 5 minutes. And we're getting and pushing ourselves to that level. So it's high time. Okay. So at that point in time, the central bank was the one intervening in agri, intervening in aviation, intervening in manufacturing, intervening in power, intervening because they could create money. Okay. It's not about printing money, it's about money creation through the banks. Okay. So that is what they call fractional banking system, which is the system we still practice. They can enable the banks to create loans, and that is how money is created in an economy. But of course, it has its downside, because it's most of the time it's inflationary money that you create therefrom. And of course, we saw, even if we say that we overdid it, but that is exactly what other countries have done under COVID, when the entire world shut down. Only that we have been in an economic crisis for longer than most people. I say that we have been in an economic depression. Yeah, what we have here is the symptoms of a depression for as far back as I can remember. Okay, we're not talking about recession here. Recession is a GDP function. Because you measure GDP, say the GDP has gone down and so on, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But the economic depression, when you have high unemployment rate, high crime rate, okay, slow growth or negative growth, you see, and things are not working in society, high illiteracy rate, high poverty, high food poverty, and so on. That is what we've had in Nigeria for too long, except we're not looking at the numbers of people that are poor and hungry in this country. If we look at it like that, we realize that we're still in an economy, and that should alarm us enough to do something about it.
All right, so we'll leave it there for now, Dr. Tokwe Fashua.
Okay.
It's always a delight talking to you. Many thanks for your time and your insights.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mm.
Up until a few years ago, Nigeria produced far less than it consumed, spending up to $22 billion annually on importation. Then came the import policy by the federal government. Now, to survive, the nation must learn to be self-sufficient. And so far, we are on the verge of achieving this through the intervention of the Central Bank of Nigeria and other stakeholders in support of local farmers and efforts of value chain entrepreneurs. Now, the goal of creating 10 million jobs in 5 years through 10 commodities is gradually being actualized. Let's buy Nigerian to grow Nigeria.
That's all from the CBN this week. Get your unresolved banking issues across to the CBN Consumer Protection Department using the email address cpd@cbn.gov.ng. Attach relevant documents. Call the CBN Contact Center on the phone line +234 700 2255 226. Local queries may apply. Send your inquiries and comments to the dedicated email address fromthecbn@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter for updates and to watch uploaded episodes of the program. We invite you to join us again next time. I am William Isidada. Stay safe and bye for now.